So we are pleased to welcome Travis Skinner to Sauna Talk. We've been following Travis's work since 2017, starting with his Snail Shell sauna project. This sauna build project is a creative nod to the Fibonacci Sequence, one of the most famous formulas in mathematics. In this episode, you'll hear from Travis about the origins of this sauna, using a yurt frame as a foundation for this building. And let's not forget the steamroller sauna. And then I'm going to include a link here in the show notes that describes and illustrates the steamroller sauna build project. A really unique shape, a canted wall that helps draw and roll the steam into the hot room. Then it's on to the anglerfish sauna project. We wrote about this sauna build project in 2018. You'll see some great photos on the website, Sauna Times, in the guest post for the anglerfish sauna project. And now we get to hear from the creator and designer and builder, Travis Skinner. We learn about the stacking function of sauna, where sauna can be multifunction and multi-purpose. You'll hear from Travis about how many of his projects are deployed through friends of his and fellow collaborators and used in the Northwest, out in Washington and Oregon, as like mini Airbnbs kind of thing. Travis has a keen interest in collaboration, coming together with other artisans and to craft as much as possible with their hands, doing work together with their hands. Quote, working with hand tools allows us to feel the materials we work with, explains Travis. It's a very obvious kind of statement, but it's so true. When we work with hand tools, we know the form. We understand the nuance of the material we're working with. And so often as we build saunas, we're working with these power tools that just kind of jam through the product. But it's especially cool to learn through Travis how he uses hand tools as much as possible. And also, on a side note, my interview with Travis reminded me of some of the most resonating aspects to sauna design and building. It's about the right brain conceptualizing. Travis stays far away from what could be called tradesman dogma. There is no you should do this or don't do that with Travis and sauna building. Rules, rigidity, and fear are not part of Travis's mindset. Travis's approach was so timely and refreshing to me, and I hope for you too as you listen to this episode. As I look to help others with their own sauna building projects, so many are easily tripped up and entangled with fear-based pushbacks from tradesmen, thermal bridging, moisture trapping, off-gassing, and these other terms hidden as advice. You'd like to think that professional builders are really out to help people, but often they appear to want to pound their chest to the casual amateur sauna builder. Is it fear or insecurity or stubbornness? Who knows? But what we do know is that Travis exudes none of this, and I want to encourage you to avoid that too and become more of an artist with your sauna build project and not written up by rules. And that type of thing. So Travis is an artist in all aspects and best sense of the word artist. He is as happy working with metal as he is with wood. He respects the origins of his material and is hyper-conscious through his entire plan and build process. We catch up with Travis outside of his tiny house in Bellingham Bay, close to Canada in Washington State. And without further ado, please welcome Travis Skinner to Sauna Talk. This show is brought to you by Nice Mug. Nice Mug is the only mug made entirely out of ice. For more information, go to nicemug.com and enter the coupon code SAUNA for 10% off your entire purchase. Well, hi, Travis. So here we are. It's one thing about this Corona thing is I don't think you and I would be doing Sauna Talk right now if we didn't have this lockdown and this Corona because you're out in the Northwest and I'm in Minnesota. So we're letting this thing work in our favor. We got technology on our side. So welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm glad that the conditions have allowed us to communicate.
Right, right. It's crazy. And you're outside. And for listeners and watchers to Sauna Talk, give us a little story. Where are you and who is to your left?
Well, I got my dog here. His name's Pi, and he actually has a bit of a leg injury today, but that's why he's hanging out with me here so patiently. But I got Pi here with me, and right now we're in Bellingham, Washington, which is up all the way by the border, right by
Hmm.
British Columbia.
Yeah, right. And are you by the water?
I am, yeah. I'm living right next to the water, right by Bellingham Bay, right by a beach called Locust Beach.
Wow. How far away is the beach from where you're sitting right now?
It's about a 5 minute, 10-minute bike ride.
It's funny you should say bike ride. I have a good buddy. He's actually a coach on the Minnesota Wild hockey team, and all his neighbors know him well because he lives across the street from Lake Minnetonka, which is a big lake in the western suburbs. And when he's done with a sauna round, he hops on his bicycle and goes about a block or maybe 10 houses down where there's a public beach, and he's in his bathing suit and all that, and he gets off his bike and cold plunge he goes. But you're not accessible for between sauna rounds from where you're sitting.
Not quite, no. I have a canoe actually that I fill with water.
Oh,
So
that's brilliant.
yeah, it's kind of the opposite use of the canoe, but it works wonderfully because it's like body length and deep enough to cold plunge in.
Travis, I have heard about many cold plunge devices and things, but that one you got me on. That's so awesome. That is so great.
It goes with the nautical theme too.
The nautical theme, and let's dive into that just a little bit in
Sure.
terms of you have a lot of themes in your life and in your creativity. Are you known for sauna building, or is it a spoke of your overall wheel, or how is that?
I started sauning in 2010, where I lived in Olympia, Washington, and there was a group of other builders who met once a month at a guy named Tibor Brewers, and they did a sweat, all men's sweat, and it was a time it was a Lakota style traditional sweat, which is a ceremony, and each round is to a different direction. So that was how I got introduced to sauna. And it just was something that really resonated with me right away. And I recognized how wonderful it was to have access to this monthly event. And that was kind of what got my wheels turning about what saunas were. And then I started, throughout my life, I got influenced by different saunas. And as a builder, it was
Mhm.
something I had always been interested in. And I think one of the things that interests me most about it is just the inclusion of all these natural elements in the building. Is
Right.
because you're building for steam and water and stone and fire. And at least in the style saunas that you and I like.
Right on,
Um,
right on. So all of these elements come into play for building, but you have this, getting back to the canoe and using that as a cold plunge and stuff. I know from your work that you have a very unique sense of adaptation of different elements, and kind of bringing them forward. And I thought we could dive right into that. The number four comes to mind. Is it true that we're talking about four specific sauna builds in your feature? And I know on Sauna Times we have featured two of your unique builds, and I could speak to the anglerfish sauna, yeah, the snail shell sauna. Do you want to take us through the whole project, or I could say the portfolio of projects just by name, and we can dive into each of them if you want to get right into that.
Sure, yeah. I'll give you a brief overview of the ones that kind of got the ball rolling. The
Mm-hmm.
Snail Shell sauna was kind of one of the first ones that I had friends who wanted a sauna built, and I kind of proposed to them that I would do it in a really creative way, in a way of taking the building into a sculpture. And they were really interested and had hosted me for a number of years in an old barn with my metal shop. So I did a lot of the work in trade for the space that I used. So anyway, that's how the Snail Shell sauna started. Was some friends wanted a sauna built, and
Right.
it became a kind of a collaborative effort with a bunch of people helping in the community in
Mm-hmm.
Olympia, Washington.
Right on. And
Um,
getting into the weeds about that one, I thought maybe it would be nice if we could take them one by one. And I'll certainly put in the show notes the link to that project with the article that we did on Sauna Times. But how big is it? And can you kind of walk us through um, the 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 build a little bit, but more the end product? How big is it? What sort of elements did you introduce in terms of materials, and how did you go about making this unique structure?
well, that one is a yurt, so it's a circular building. But instead of doing it as a circle, I made the roof spiral out. It's on the Fibonacci sequence, and it creates like a snail shell where it's spiral, and where the spiral comes off of the circle is the entrance. And there's an entrance way where you can stop and take your clothes off and put your towel on. And
Beautiful.
then there's a door that goes into the actual sauna. And it's a 10-foot circle. It's 9-sided and nonagon.
Mm-hmm.
And then each wall is canted, which means that none of the walls are vertical. They splay out at a low angle. And that allows the walls to function as the backrest. And it also keeps the walls really well protected from water splashback, which is
Mm,
like one of the biggest issues in the Northwest.
right on. And where's the
Um,
stove located?
The stove on that one is actually located inside of the sweat. And then
Mm,
there's a stone sculpture built around the wood stove that you
yeah,
pour water onto.
right, right. So the foundation, or that's not the right word. I guess the base for this is a yurt about 9 foot in diameter. Was sort of the
10
canvas
foot
you.
at the base.
Yeah, got it. So that
And
was
there
what
is a
you.
concrete slab too.
Right on. And so that's what you started with. You figured, okay, here's a yurt, and I can build this yurt, and then you worked off of that.
Yeah, I used the style of construction of concentric ring yurt. And it
Nice.
was heavily influenced by a builder from Maine. His name's William Copperthwaite. And I learned a lot about yurts from his work. And he kind of brought yurts to America
Hmm.
in the 60s
Hmm.
from kind of a cultural adaptation of the Mongolian yurt.
Beautiful, beautiful. And is that sauna still in operation? And how far is it from where you are? And is it still being used?
Yeah, that one is still in operation, and it gets used during the winter for a sauna, and then in the summertime it actually gets used as a guest house a lot,
Beautiful.
which is really nice of that stacking functions that saunas offer in a lot of places. And it's just a really nice building. As soon as you walk in, the aroma of the Western red cedar just really takes over, and it's all
Yeah.
live edge, and it feels like you're inside of a tree when you're inside of that one because it's
Beautiful.
round.
Right. Wonderful. Can we go to number two?
Yeah, the next one that I did was a collaboration with another builder who lived down in Portland, Oregon. And his name is Mark Goodson, and he has a company called Engaging Environments. And he was just a friend of a friend that I met that was a really talented builder. And he came up and saw the Snail Shell sauna, and he said, "Hey, I have an idea about a sauna that I want to build, which had this curved roof, and that allowed to push the steam. It curves and then goes straight to where the bench is.
Hmm.
So it kind of directs the steam towards the people who are sitting in the room. and we call that one the steamroller.
Right on.
So that was the next one that I built in Portland, Oregon, and that has a really unique shape, a canted wall that acts as the backrest again, and then underneath of the seating is all wood storage. That stove is an outside load, and we had a stove builder from Portland build that stove. So it was like a
Beautiful.
custom sauna stove that had a cage around it with
Hmm.
stones.
Hmm. So, how many times have you saunaed in the steamroller sauna?
Actually, quite a bit. We built it, and then oddly enough, it ended up getting stored at my other really good friend's place. And it was there for about 2 years. So every time when I'd go down to Portland, I could go and use the sauna and visit my friend Tyler Smith. I would stop and get to a chance to reconnect with that one. And a lot of people in Portland got to use that sauna. It's a
Beautiful.
really great building.
Wow, that sounds great. Is it hot room only? Is there a changing room, and what sort of dimensions internally in the hot room itself?
You know, that one's really small a floor layout because you walk in the door and then to the right there's the tiered seating and the
Hmm.
wall kicks out in that direction. The actual floor space in that sauna is only about 6 feet by 8 feet deep, and then the rest of it is all bench. Um, and it's just a two-tiered bench on one side, and the wood stove is facing. You're kind of facing the wood stove when you're seated.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I wrote an article about, we have in America, we have big cheeseburgers, big cars, but we don't have to build big saunas. And, I back people down off the cliff almost daily about uh, getting them to rethink the size of their hot room. And I think 6'8" or 7'7", 6'8" is really a sweet spot in terms of the cube, and the ability, actually, the ironic ability to serve or to heat a lot of people. Because as you know, with good heat, your hot round session, what is it, 10, 15 minutes?
Right.
And your climate out there in the Northwest, I mean, hanging out outside is not a big thing. So the idea of cycling through this sauna sounds really quite ideal. I think it's well cubed, right?
Yeah. The more I work with saunas, I like them smaller and smaller. I love to just utilize heat and have that real hot heat. That one had an awesome thermometer in it, and it was great when it would get up to 200, 210, and you can just see everyone in there slumping down,
Yeah.
trying to get it. The top benches just gets harder and harder to climb.
Right on, right on. I know, but where else do we get that level of intensity? And I think that's I call that like the rubber band theory of sauna, where you're really actualizing these temperature extremes before you enter your water-filled canoe. You have this like really intense heat, and that's part of the dynamic in the greatness of sauna. And it sounds like this sauna is very fulfilling, and there's probably never a need to reach for a spring jacket while sitting on the bench.
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Right on, brother. Okay, so that's number two. Anything else to the steamroller? Sounds fabulous. That's still in operation, still in Portland.
It actually moved. It's not in Portland anymore. It's outside of Portland on the Washington side of the Columbia River. And
Hmm.
it's at another friend's farm down there. They make mead. So they're hosting that sauna right now, which is cool. It's it's small enough that it can be loaded on skids and moved around.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's where that one is. And then after that, I started working on the anglerfish sauna, which has been a big project for me. And that was really when I started this organization called the 100-Handed Ones. And the reason I started that is I started working with another artist, and we decided that we wanted to make more of an architectural organization that represented just more than one artist, because the more that you work on buildings, there's just so many different people that work on it. There's so many different expertises. And I really love about architecture is it brings together all these different groups of people and has a larger purpose in mind. And the anglerfish sauna really did that for me, was working with a team. And so another artist that I met did sheet metal work, and his name is Travis Kahn. We share the same first name, oddly enough. And he's an art teacher. He taught high school art, and he is an extremely talented armor smith. He makes masks and armor. And when I saw what he was doing with sheet metal, I thought there was a really big opportunity to use his skill sets toward architecture. So we decided to make an organization, and we referenced this ancient Greek story of the 100-handed ones.
Mm.
So
and tell us about that story briefly, if you don't mind, Travis. That and the connection.
yeah, I'd love to. I love these ancient stories that connect present day with the humanity of the past. And this story was a really old story. Is that before humans were ever around in ancient Greek and Roman tales, there was these titans. And two of the titans, one was the earth and one was the sky. And they had children, and the first three children that they had were called the 100-handed ones. And they were kind of like a mistake for the parents. It was, their first time making children, and they didn't turn out quite as they planned. And these beings ended up having 50 heads and 100 arms. And they were kind of treacherous beasts. And their father, the sky, was really ashamed of them. So he trapped them in the pits of Tartarus. And while they were trapped for ages, they developed skills with their hands that to take up the time and to just use the opportunities that they had. And they became some of the greatest makers that ever lived. And then Zeus, in order to overthrow his father, Cronus, he came to the 100-handed ones and he said, if you make me what I need to defeat my father, I'll let you out of these pits. And the 100-handed ones made Zeus his first bolt of lightning. And that's what gave Zeus the power to overthrow his father. So there are these pivotal players of makers that are really not recognized in the story, but without them, Zeus could never arise to defeat his father. So we decided to reference this story of the difficulties in order to push each other to work to something better than oneself.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's my little Greek story for you for the day.
That sounds wonderful. And it fed into this collaborative team of Travis, the iron worker, you, the Travis, we call you the builder, like the builder guy, like the wood. Is that your expertise per se? Is that your medium of?
Yeah, I do multimedia. That's my favorite thing about architecture. And I have a blacksmithing forge here. So I'd love to bend metal and hammer metal. And then I also do a lot of woodworking and wood sculpture. But everything is very hand driven. I don't use excessive amounts of power tools with any of the work that I do. I, of course, use some power tools, but most of the work that I do is done with very simple, old tools. And that's kind of where I come from. And also where Travis Kahn, he is a sheet metal smith and really a metal historian. And he studied armor and the way that they make metal helmets throughout all of history. So he learned all these different techniques that are very simple with simple tools, but they don't rely heavily on computer aid. And I think that's what really makes us stand out with our work, is that we do nothing on computers. Everything is done with a pencil and a paper on design, and then with usually a hammer and a tool in application. And that's where our artwork comes from, is the process, and making the process, instead of having high-powered tools with terrible amounts of dust and hurt your
Mm-hmm.
ears.
Mm.
We work in a pleasant environment that utilizes simple tools. And also, it's a very much related to a relationship the artist has with a material, and
Right on.
utilizing the material to its the best of its ability, the assets that it has. Just like the way that I bent the wood in the anglerfish sauna, the cedar as the material, it created the shape of the building because of the way it bends. And
Mm.
we utilize the bend of the material to create a design instead of forcing a design on a material. So I think that's fundamentally what makes it different, and why I wanted to start the organization, the 100-Handed Ones, was to celebrate a hand and craft oriented design.
Beautiful. Wow. Thank you for that. And what a pleasant thing to be working with the material with your hands, and accepting the grain, accepting the shape of the shape you're creating. I mean, you're basically sculpting these material, using these materials. You're a sculptor.
Exactly. And the anglerfish sauna was our opportunity to take a building and turn it into a sculpture.
Mm.
And so we wanted to make art as an experience. And the reason that we use sauna is because sauna is a cultural practice that is extremely relevant to right now. The, in that interview that you had with Mikkel Alland, he said something that resonated so heavily with me that I wanted to reference. But he said that the sauna is the womb of Mother Earth herself. And I could not believe hearing those words after we had built what we built, because that was exactly what we were going for, was a center of rebirth for the person to step inside of in a foreign environment that is guided through the natural world and identify with something that is not based on their ego identity, their material mask. And the actual act that literally encourages the audience to remove their material layer is really, really symbolic. And that's why this sculpture is unique,
Mhm.
and why I'm working on making this book right now
Mm,
about
beautiful.
building this sculpture.
Yeah, man. Well done. Let's talk about the book. And before we do that, we'll stay there's a fourth sauna within the book. Is that right? Is it fourth?
No, actually, I'm sorry that, yeah, I wanted to clarify. I actually decided to, when I first started the book idea, I was planning on using all of the saunas that I built. But I went back and I really realized that I wanted to center the book only on the anglerfish sauna. I spent a year and a half on one project, and I had 2,200 photos of this project. And really, the book, I wanted to show the reader the process of how this thing was built.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I want to engage the process with the reader is because I want children and kids to see things are possible. Like, I've seen a lot of building books. I look at them all the time. And usually you see a finished product with a couple people standing next to it with a big smile on their face. And it's wonderful, but it doesn't show the guts, the how it was actually made. And connecting the audience with that process has always been what has driven me, and what I've always sought out in artwork is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happened. But there's another side to the book that I think is really important. It's not just about process. It's what you mentioned at the beginning, the coronavirus, is that I think that this event is potentially can have a stimulus for preventative and health conscious lifestyle. And that's what sauna represents, is it's how we can boost our immune systems through the teachers of cold and hot, to allow our immune systems to be able to handle these things in these stressed out environments, especially in the winter when viruses are going to be rampant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to focus this bit of media during this time to make it about something that has the ability to heal people and increase their immune systems at a time when we really need to think about that.
Beautiful. So really, it's a double dose. I mean, it's the process, and it's the process making something that is actually very good for us. It's health and a health environment. And yeah, you bring up something else, with the hot and the cold. It's quite obvious to you and I, but we have developed as humans to live in a very uh, narrow range of temperature, and this is part of a lot of the elements of the Wim Hof method and this whole thermogenesis thing. And sauna is just a great gateway to experience the extremes of hot and cold. And then we open up the doors to the whole wellness aspect of strengthening our immune system and cardiovascular, and this whole rainbow of wellness. So your book has this dual meaning. It sounds like a dual lesson. You mentioned for young people, but for all of us, right?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking about it more as like a children's book for adults.
Beautiful.
It's a photographic story about how something was made and why it was made.
Mm-hmm.
Every time people see the sauna, they just ask two questions. They are in wonder, and they say, why did you do this, and what inspired you? And after so many times of hearing those two questions, I decided I'm going to show them in a visual way to create media that stimulates people to do what's potential, to reference the better parts.
Yeah.
um,
Yes.
and
Lovely. Yeah. So what is the book writing process like for you, Travis?
It's been great. I actually went to graduate school, so I spent a lot of time reading and writing throughout my academic career. So it really puts me back in that academic role. And I have just been reading so much. I've been reading Mikel Allen's book, Sweat, which has been terrific. All of the historical significance is just so good. It resonates so well with me. It's been a real pleasure to read. It's too bad that it's so difficult to get a print version of that book, but he has made it available on his website. So you can read it for free is how I've been doing it. And I love that book. The other book I've been reading I just finished was David Byrne's book.
Mm.
It's called How Music Works.
Yeah, man.
And again, this was one of those process-oriented books directed for people to see how this thing was made, to introduce the audience to the process, and to not separate the artist from the standard or everyday person. Is that we want to incorporate this in everyone's lives to allow people to, follow what gives them fulfillment with their actions. Again, the other book that I've been reading and is really philosophically based was this book called The Power of Nonviolence. And it was written in 1934 by a guy named Richard Gregg. And it has been a terrific book that explains a lot of the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. Because this guy went in the 1920s and actually lived with Gandhi, came back and wrote this book. And this book was really important in the civil rights movement in the United States in the 60s. And Martin Luther King Jr. was in contact with Richard Gregg about this publication. So I thought in the times as they are, it was good to go back and read something that was philosophically resonant to the time. So I've been kind of jumping around on books and time periods and just thinking a lot about how to tell a story.
Yeah.
And then along with reading a lot, I've been writing a ton. I spend 3 to 4 hours a day in my house and I just write on paper. I don't spend time on the computer as much. I like to get my ideas out by hand on a sketch pad and then go back in the evening time and I'll process it. And that's kind of the percolation period, is when I transfer it from the handwritten form into the text in a computer.
So Travis, if I had to bet, I was going to bet that you were handwriting based on your story about using hand tools. You're a very tactile individual. And so I imagine you sitting there over coffee in the morning, and what a therapeutic process where you can get your ideas on paper using your hand and the actual manual writing. And then you kind of jump into putting it in digital form later.
Right. And then I go out and do a sauna and I think about it and process, you know. And then
Yeah.
I come in the morning and drink the coffee and get typing or writing by hand, and
Yeah.
then to typing. I've been doing a lot of photo editing. So that's been, and then the other thing I do a lot since I'm home is I've been baking all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing sourdough breads, and it was great actually recently. I'm so glad to tell you this. Me and my buddy decided that we would try using the sauna to bake bread. And so while it was heating, we fermented the dough in the higher temperature environment, which worked terrifically. And then at the end, all the coals, we just put a cast iron right into the stove and
Oh,
baked the bread in the sauna stove.
that's wonderful. Yeah.
So that
So
was
it's
one of those
working out.
stacking. It worked wonderfully. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, it's one of those stacking function things that people a long time ago would have done
Mm-hmm.
because they would have tried to utilize the resources.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it just connects you, I think, with that human history again. It's just playing with bread. It's that
Yeah.
simple, but you know, it's also just there's so much there.
Right on. That's really cool. Couple things. So on the writing front, I hear you. I have a clipboard in my changing room, and I can't tell you how often I jot stuff down. And as you can relate, one of the wonderful things about sauna, and I've been taking pretty much nothing but solo saunas lately, since I've been up
Right.
at our island cabin and all that. I mean, you have a lot of time with yourself, and sitting
Yeah.
on the sauna bench. I don't know what a lot of people think about, but boy, my mind goes all over the place. And then, you're sitting there for 15
Yeah.
minutes, and then when I don't know about you, but when I leave the hot room and a cold plunge, I'm like, I got to remember this. I got to remember that. So I got all these fragments written down, and then I bring in like this wet, piece of paper, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with all of these elements, and I set it on my desk inside, and then say, I'll get that. I'll get to that later. And then, usually the next morning I look at it, and I'm half of it is like, what the hell was I thinking?
Yeah.
But some of it works, and that's the numbers game, like when you think about all kinds of great creative minds, it's not the stuff that ended up in the garbage pile, but you need a lot of stuff in the garbage pile for the good things to percolate to the top.
Yeah, I think about it as play. You have to take time to play and make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And that's just that relationship I talk about with material, is
Mm.
that if you get too serious about your media and you never take time to play, you don't grow and develop as a craftsperson. You can do the same thing over and over and over again, but
Wow.
you don't have a story or a progression.
Or an
And I
identity to the
really,
product. So thank you
right.
for that. Yeah, I've been grappling with this. As you know, I help a lot of people build saunas, and there's this sort of like confluence that's happening with builders by trade getting into the sauna business, or they say they have been in the sauna business for a long time, and they're applying a very mechanized approach to something that you and I relate to more as art. And I'm so grateful and happy to have this conversation with you, because you're grounding me back to a place one of the key things that I love about sauna building is it really is a creative process, and it's not one of these things that's reduced to just very simple instructions. And that's why when I wrote the book on how to build a sauna, I really try to offer places for creativity and individuality to come forward, instead of this, here's how you do it, here's what you need, here's your building materials list, here's your dimensions. Anybody can do that. And I want to really emphasize and get back, Matt, more to the creative side of sauna building. So for that, I want to thank you for bringing that forward in this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate your compliment.
Yeah, right, right. So let's talk a little bit more about any upcoming sauna build projects for you, and have you built any saunas lately?
Yeah, I did recently. I had a friend come that had an old horse trailer, and I converted the horse trailer into a sauna just a couple weeks ago, and that was a really wonderful build. Just on the outside, it looks like an old horse trailer with a pipe sticking out of it. On the inside, it's a really nice cedar sauna with all brass details.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a tub in it, and the bench is over the tub. And this one's awesome because it's a dual purpose summertime, is that in the summertime you can open the two rear doors where the horses used to go in and then have a hot bath anywhere. And in the wintertime you close everything up and you got an awesome sauna.
Nice.
So you
And
have this.
how is this heated, and how did you treat these um, non-linear, non-flat panels that are in a horse trailer?
Well, yeah, the nice part about sheet metal is that on one plane, it bends really, really well. You can't bend it in all three dimensions, but on one dimension, it folds really easily. And so what I did for all the curves was I cut pieces of sheet metal and bent them, but then shingle overlapped them to take the curves, and then riveted the pieces together. And on each of the curves, I just used sheet metal because it bent and fit into that curve space really easily. And then on all the flat planes, I just used tongue and groove cedar.
Nice. So this is a multimedia interior walled hot room?
Yeah, it is. And yep.
Something tells me David Byrne would like that.
Yeah. I always try to bring as many media in as I can. I especially love stained glass. I think stained glass is one of those medias that it's, light that is colored, and it envelopes you and it changes the space. And most of the time I'm sauning at night, but if you can get stained glass into it, the Snail Shell sauna has a wonderful piece of stained glass in the window. And even on some full moon nights, just the moonlight through that window is just,
yeah, right on.
Changes the space.
Right. That we call what's called the candle window is quite a significant thing in the history. Like if you go way back into sauna building, even when you consider until recently that saunas were built without electricity and stuff. So this like window element in sauna has always been something sort of important, but also again a signature element opportunity. And you've definitely taken that up a notch by utilizing stained glass. And I would have to say that in there's in both the anglerfish sauna and the snail shell sauna, there's correct me if I'm wrong, but you have stained glass in both, right?
Well, actually, I have blown glass in the anglerfish sauna, and that was especially cool because I got to go to a place in Centralia that does blown glass, and I had an artist blow the actual plates and infuse the color into the plates. We made them extra thick, and those are the domed eyes in the anglerfish sauna is blown glass.
Yeah, right on. Okay, cool. So, where do you live now? Like, are you living in a house, or you're in Olympia? Is it? Something tells me tiny house is your mode. Am I?
Well, yeah, that's the funny thing. I lived in Olympia for quite a while, but I've been out of Olympia for a couple of years now, and I'm living up in Bellingham, Washington.
That's right.
Now.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I have a tiny house, and I live in the backyard of an older woman named Rebecca Snodgrass. She's a really wonderful lady, and she has MS. So she has a lot of issues with her joints. And I'm living in the backyard, and I got my sauna back here, and we're just 5 minutes from the beach, and I can help her with certain things, and then it's advantageous for me to have a nice place to live for a reasonable rent.
Beautiful. And does she sauna?
She would, but right now during coronavirus, she hasn't been wanting to be in contact right now.
Completely understandable.
Especially with immune system compromised situation. So she hasn't been sunning, but I have made it available.
Mm-hmm. No, I get that. Like here in Minneapolis, what's emerging, through this, and I mean, my sauna is a perfect example. I mean, before all this stuff, and for many years. I'm talking almost 20 years in my backyard Minneapolis sauna. I sort of fell into these sauna time slots, and a lot of my pals, a lot of my buddies would know, like Friday happy hour has always been a sauna time for me. And so I would sort of cast some invites out, and it was always a sauna party with a variable, guest lists. Some would show, some wouldn't show, but it was always sort of like this free form gathering, and anyway, as you well know, with Corona, that none of this is happening, and we're all
Right.
respecting this, this self quarantine stuff. And I've been, as I mentioned earlier, so it's like yourself. I mean, it's a lot of solo sauna time, but what we've been doing is this like sauna, I guess you could call it cycling, where what I'll do is, as my, when I know I'm going to sauna, I'll send an invite out to a friend or a friend and his wife or whatever. And then as I'm finishing my sauna, like close to 7 p.m., if I start at 5, they know I'm going to be out of there at 6:37, and I toss a log on, and they have a great sauna. So, I love this term that you use about stacking function. And I think this is kind of really where a lot of people are going with their backyard saunas, is the stacking function of using the heat through multiple sessions with multiple guests under their own isolated bubble.
Yep.
Yeah, that's great. So you can relate, huh?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I can totally relate. I have the same thing just because I live, there's other people who live at the same property, little cabins. So once it's fired and I have my rounds or whoever, anyone can use it. And that's kind of one of the things, is that the sauna becomes one of the center parts of a community. And that's why it's so, has the potential to have such a wonderful effect, is that it's good for your immune system, but it's also really good for people to interact with one another or have their own personal space too.
Beautiful.
And I think it's that stacking functions of, like, it does all of these things and all of them are good for people. Really.
Right on, brother. Well said. Thank you. Let's talk about sauna design for a moment. What are
Yeah,
your
sure.
favorite design elements? I mean, you alluded to stained glass as a very unique element. What else comes to mind for you?
Well, a couple of things, because I've listened to some of the other guests that you've had, and one of the things that I really liked, that in the Native American sweat, they incorporate a real low door. And I read about this before I built my sauna, and it was so that everyone had to bow their head before entering.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a really wonderful idea, and something that I never saw. Like, everything in Western architecture is based so that, you would never have to lower your head. And that's why I wanted to incorporate something that was the antithesis of what you've seen, but has kind of a important, and it also saves heat too.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but that,
I was. Where was I? Was I walking? Was I on a bike ride? In anticipation of our chat, I really wanted to lean into. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to lean into something about form and function, and again, I deal with a lot of people building saunas, and in this sort of like spectrum, like it's way over on the function side predominantly. I mean, people are into a practical build that does the job, like optimizing or minimizing the amount of cedar and maximizing the amount of space. I mean, a very functional build. And, there's grace in that. I mean, there's a lot of great purpose in that. But I have to say, in all the people that I've collaborated with and known with regard to sauna build, you really strike me as somebody who's way over on the other side. And I would love for you to speak a little bit about the balance that you apply between form, the design, the creativity, and then the practical, the function, the nuts and bolts. What comes to mind with that? Can you speak a little bit to that?
sure, yeah. I really think that function has to drive every project. The thing has to work. It serves a purpose, and if it doesn't work well, then it's not going to last. So everything always has to first serve a function. But when you miss out on an opportunity for design, um, sometimes you just forego something that can really affect you in a way that you don't consider. I live in a handmade home that I built, and it has a really profound effect on your everyday life.
Mm.
Is that when you're sitting, you don't think about the fact that all of these small things around you have a story and a part of your history, and really they become a part of you. And I think that when you only focus on efficiency of material and you don't think about the idea that you're going to use this thing all the time, it's going to be a part of you, then you don't think about some of the opportunities there are that will take more time. And it took me a while to learn how to build things that weren't flat and square. And I come from more of learning about from boats, and this is where you see the highest level of woodworking a lot of times, is in this marine architecture. And you get to see curves that serve a function, but they really have a profound effect on you. When you step into a round room, it makes you feel differently. And I wanted this sauna to be a womb environment, a womb of the earth. And in order to accomplish that, it couldn't just be a flat walls. Nature doesn't have flat surfaces in most ways. And for me, I really just find inspiration from the natural things that are around us. And my favorite builders have always referenced nature in a way that sometimes takes a little bit more time, but when you pay attention to the line, it can cause you to create something that has really a resounding effect on the users. If any person that steps inside of the anglerfish sauna remembers it, that it's just a remarkable space, and it represents the materials in a way that resonates with everyone. And I'm really proud and grateful that I've had the opportunity to experiment enough to learn about things so that I can bring them together in this multimedia forum. And that's really why I'm hoping to make this book, is to share some of the inspiration that comes to make something outside of what is just the most efficient way.
Beautiful. Yeah, man. Thank you. Excellent. Well said, Travis. And I was almost not going to even ask this question because you probably get asked this a million times, but why anglerfish? Is there a deeper meaning to that, or is it just a fish that you like as a species? What's behind the anglerfish specifically?
It's very much form based. The shape of the fish was this round but not sleek. It's kind of chunky, the fish. So it fit what I needed. Again, I wasn't forcing form onto what I wanted, but finding what exists and then referencing it for its beauty. So it's all about connection to how to get where you want to go, and then what is the best way to do it. And for us, we just sat around and drew pictures for a long time, and the fish was the form that was what we wanted to represent, and the anglerfish was the fish that best represented what we needed in order to accomplish it. Also, the bioluminescent lantern of the anglerfish is tremendous, and every time I've seen it, it's just sticks in my memory. And I have 6-year-olds that walk off the street and know immediately that it's an anglerfish. And of all my critics, the 6 to 7-year-old range is who I really listen to, because if you can hold a 6-year-old's attention, you have something good. And I have 6-year-olds that just come out of the woodwork to tell me about my anglerfish, and I love to listen to that critic. That is the critic we need.
Thank you. Beautiful. If you could have a mobile sauna and bring it anywhere in the world, Travis, what's the first place that comes to mind for you?
Well, I thought about it I really love going up to the mountains, and there's a mountain right by us, Sauk Mountain. It's on the way out on Highway 20 out to the Cascades, and there's a wonderful lake up there, Sauk Lake, and I don't know how you would have to fly a sauna in to get it up there, but I would love to do a sauna up on a glacial lake. That would be
Yeah,
wonderful.
beautiful. So maybe you could be thinking about what form that sauna could take, what shape. I don't know. There's some bench thinking for you.
Absolutely, yeah. That's definitely a project that I would love to do someday, is like a backcountry sauna.
Right on, right on. And if you could sauna with anybody in the world, say dead or alive, past, present, who's the first person that pops into your head?
Well, I think the first person that I would want to sweat with today is someone alive. I would rather choose is because it's possible. And I really like Wallace Thornhill. He is a plasma scientist, and he does a lot of research on electricity. And I've been absolutely fascinated with his work and some of the ideas about plasma being a really important element that we don't consider, and also an alternative cosmology to the Big Bang Theory. There are a lot of people who think that the Big Bang is not the only um, explanation. And Wallace Thornhill and the Thunderbolts Project has some really, really wonderful ideas. And if you've never heard of them, I just highly recommend you check out the Thunderbolts projects and some of the ideas in astrophysics that are happening with electricity and electromagnetism.
Yeah, and that begs the question, would it be a wood-fired or electric sauna stove?
Yeah, absolutely would. Unfortunately, I mean, I like talking about electricity, but there's no way. I don't use electric saunas, although I would, if I had to. But you cannot compete with the wood sauna. It's just the heat is tremendous, and the process is elemental. Um, and I think that part of it really has always resonated with me. It's just the actual just starting the fire, and staying connected with that is really important to me.
Yeah, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Um, as you talk with others that are less familiar with sauna than yourself, um, as you encounter people, your saunas have a story behind them and are unique in certainly in their own ways and stuff. But what do you think is most misunderstood about sauna specifically? In the Northwest, or in people that you encounter. If you could kind of distill it to like one thing, what is most misunderstood about sauna? Uh, from
Well, I
your
think the
perspective?
most misunderstood thing that I come into contact with is people only think that it's a hot room. And I think that there's really a misunderstanding, because the cold plunge is so essential to really appreciate a sauna. And I mean, you know better than anyone, but I think that really is in the Northwest the most misunderstood thing, is that most people come that don't know sauna, they only expect that it's going to be warm. And then when you encourage them to do the cold plunge, they have to kind of address their own personal volitions.
Yeah, right on.
And you can't convince everyone, which is okay. I mean, I don't try to convince everyone, but I let them know that it's really important.
Yeah, yeah, and even to that point, like a baby step for that. And I wrote an article like, "Are you benefiting from the clean rinse after every sauna round?" And what I, as a baby step, I really try to encourage this idea of rinse. Like, if you can't take the ice cold water, at least like hit the outdoor shower or jump in the lake, or get that rinse going. And
Hmm.
often that's like a gateway drug, or the beginning stages for an ice cold bath, or lake plunge.
Oh yeah. But once you do that, you just can't go back. I mean, it's a life changer. You're standing outside, it's freezing cold, and you feel warm.
Yeah.
And you can't explain that to someone. There's just no words. It sounds
Mhm.
crazy just from our experience of cold, but once you get through that, it really changes your life.
Amen. I feel it. I love it. Thank you. And as you think about, like, is today a sauna day for you, Travis, or
No, I saunaed yesterday actually,
right on?
and I'm gonna do my next sweat on Saturday probably.
Yeah.
I don't do it every day, but I usually wait for real cold days or maybe once or twice a week. About
Mhm.
once to twice a week usually is what I end up doing.
Well, today's a sauna day for me, and I actually have the stove on idle right now. I almost want to jump
Nice.
off and throw another log on the fire, but I'm enjoying our chat immensely. As so, Saturday is a sauna day, and as you think about that day, the anticipation of as it leads up to firing up the sauna stove, checking on the fire, round one, the first cold plunge, your cycles, your rounds, even tucking yourself into bed at night. That whole process. What's your favorite? What's your favorite moment through a sauna session?
I think it really comes back to that cold plunge again, is that the moment that you step out of the water and you feel the steam coming off of your body, it's just another worldly moment. And so because of that, it's I guess a bit novel, but that's my favorite part.
Lovely. Sauna's getting to be a big deal out in Washington, isn't it? I mean, are more and more people getting into it out there?
Yeah, I think more and more people are, but it's not super common. It's not a part of most people's daily activity or weekly activity. I think the gym community is probably the people that I find that use sauna the most, is that people who have access to it through their gyms. And whenever I get people that have only used a gym sauna and they come to my sauna and I have these much higher temperatures, it, they are always like, it's nothing like what I've experienced. So, it's the saunas that do exist don't necessarily have the same benefits that you and I appreciate so much. So
Yeah.
I think it's still up and coming here,
Right on.
on,
Right on.
on a large level,
Yeah.
on an average person level.
Right on. Yeah, I feel it. Here in Minnesota, sauna has been around, like, with the Finnish immigrants coming here and our topography with so many lakes and stuff. It's really, there really is not really, you could say there's not really a revival. It's always been around. But there is sort of this urban revival, and you have, younger folks that may have experienced sauna at, like, camp or at grandparents' cabin. And so we have this familiarity in Minnesota. It's certainly not like Finland
Sure.
by that stretch, but it's really interesting to talk with people from all over North America. You have great cedar and great climate and great nature. And yeah, I think there's a Scandinavian history, a Nordic history to your region.
Hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't. I would say Minnesota's sure a hotbed, but you're probably a lukewarm bed for sauna out there.
Sure, yeah, and sweat lodges too are around this area.
Native American.
Hmm.
Yeah, right on, brother. Well, this is great. I love having you on Sauna Talk, Travis. Any other thoughts or words that come
Well,
to
I
mind?
had a quick question for you, if that's okay.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I saw that golden egg sauna, and I just wanted to ask you a quick question about how that happened.
Mhm.
That was a really unique building.
It,
And yeah,
yeah, it's interesting that you asked me about that because I was going to bring that up to you.
sure,
I didn't. I wanted to keep your art separate from that art. That
that's
was,
okay. It's a
yeah,
cool
that
building.
design. But there is some common. I hate to even use the word commonality. There's some, like, interesting common elements of what that project was about in the work you're doing. So thanks for bringing that up. I had the pleasure to sauna in that sauna. It came to
Nice.
Minneapolis, and I actually, on Sauna Talk, I interviewed the two guys that were behind the project, and
Okay.
it was quite fascinating. It's very visually appealing, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely, it's round, it's faceted. So those round curves aren't contiguous, but
Mhm.
wow, what a shape, and especially for a sauna, it must work really well.
Well, I have to be very diplomatic about this, but well, they were Swedish guys that built it. So does that say something?
Yeah.
No, I'm just kind of joking. I'm a little bit joking, but see so the in fairness to the sauna, it was deployed in Minneapolis in the winter, and it was really cold, and there's no
Yeah.
insulation in the sauna, and
Oh, okay.
this golden egg is quite vertical. I mean, I think it's about 10 feet tall. So you
A lot
climb
of the
up
heat's
into
going up.
this. Yeah, yeah. So the simple process of heat rising really works against the sauna. So
Yeah.
as a guy that loves it hot like you and um, I was almost reaching for my spring jacket, and I
Yeah.
kind of felt bad about that. So, but
You're a little
anyway,
too conditioned.
yeah, yeah, and I have to be so careful. I want to be very careful because the art is the form is so magnificent, um,
Sure.
and sometimes the function may not go right in hand.
Yeah.
How's that for art diplomacy? Was I okay?
Sounds good. It's a very
Right
cool
on.
building.
It's very cool, and God love creative saunas, right? I mean, that's the spirit, I think, of your great work, and so please, keep it up. um, what else, like, where can people learn a little bit more? I'll put some links to the show notes. We would love to keep up with you on the progress of your writing and your work. You want to leave us with any thought about your future, Travis, in terms of you have a writing project on the table here. Any sauna builds specifically in your immediate future, or maybe leave us with a little bit of info like that, and how people can stay in touch with you.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks so much. Well, I do have a couple of sauna projects that are in the works. I have a friend who lives in Asheville, North Carolina, and has a little community. They bought property, and they've talked to me about building a custom sauna there on a lake. So that's something I'm really hoping to do, but it hasn't all aligned. The stars haven't aligned yet. But this spring I might be doing something in Asheville. And then I have another person, a friend who's living in Colorado, who's talking to me about a portable sauna.
Mhm.
That's actually a Viking ship design. So that sounds like a pretty cool project also, that might be coming up. And then you can learn about all the stuff that's happening for me. I have a website that's the 100, the number 100, and then the word handed, HANDED, 100handed.org.
Beautiful.
And that you can learn more about the 100-handed ones, and you can see some of our other works. And then, yeah, then you can keep up to date. I'll have the book available probably with an online version also. It's going to be a couple months at least until I'm even done the content, so I'm not sure when the book will be out, but I thought it would actually be better to talk to you while the process was happening so that you could be a little bit a part of what is happening and not just the finished product. And then hopefully maybe when I do finish, I will get you a link, and we'll be able to promote the book also. That would be something that would be wonderful. But yeah, that's kind of it. I do have an Instagram available too. You can check out some of the stuff like on a daily basis, and that's at Paraducks, PAIRODUCKS. And that's a pretty good way to keep in touch. I try to put pictures up just to share with little woodworking projects, metalworking projects, just things I'm doing, tinkering. So yeah, that's how you can learn more. And
Mhm.
Glenn, I really appreciate you making this organization and interviewing all these people. It's really been super inspirational for me to learn from the media that you've created, and I think it's really important to recognize that we need as much media that's promoting a healthy lifestyle as we can get right now. And so I really would like to say thank you for the work that you've done.
Thank you, sir. That's very kind, and it's a labor of love and my pleasure. I get to connect with someone like yourself. It's made my day, maybe my week. In the time of Corona, it could be the highlight of my month. So thanks, man. And Travis Skinner,
Yes.
state of Washington. Anglerfish Sauna Project. Just so happy to make this connection with you, brother. We're kindred spirits on many levels, and you've really, I just want to close with, from my side, is I want to emphasize you've really reinforced the art of sauna building as a creative process, and not a plug and play thing you do to get done. It's a beautiful journey, and you've such a beautiful example of that, and I hope others are inspired by your great work.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Be well.
And I hope you have a great sweat.
Yeah, man. I'm going on the bench right now.
All right.
See you, Travis.